It's 6 o'clock in London. It's 1 p.m. in New York, 1 a.m. in Hong Kong, 3 a.m. in Sydney, 10 a.m. in San Francisco, and 10:30 at night in Mumbai. Greetings, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. My name is Patrick L. Young. The IPO-VID live stream, Series 19, Episode 2. That is Episode 110 starts here. And today we're going to be having a bit of a spectacular episode for you, ladies and gentlemen. We're celebrating AFM at 25 years, Exchange Invest at 10 years, and indeed also there is the simple case of having well and truly surpassed 100 episodes of IPO-VID. Now, during the course of the last week, we've had some epic news coming out of the exchange parish. First of all, there's this, well, what we headlined in Exchange Invest today, the Adenza cadenza. Congratulations to NASDAQ are in order. They've done their biggest deal ever, and it's somewhat lyrical deal making. They're acquiring a company called Cadenza. Sorry, start again. They're acquiring a company called Adenza. Sorry, I get terribly confused with these new brand names. I can't wait until it's all called NASDAQ. That will be simpler for us. They're going to be embracing what are the brands of Axiom SL and Calypso, huge providers of all manners of very, very important processing technology in the world of derivatives and capital markets overall throughout the world. That's a great move. It's a transformative $10.5 billion deal for NASDAQ, part cash, part also in equity. In fact, quite a large chunk of equity there's going to be. Thoma Bravo, the seller, they're going to end up with a seat on the board of NASDAQ. And more importantly, they're going to be the second largest shareholder. They're going to get $5.75 billion in cash and 85.6 million shares in NASDAQ common stock. That's going to result in them being the second largest shareholder, as I mentioned before. Previously, you had Bourse of Dubai with 89,341,000 and a bit. Now, there's obviously going to be second to that is going to be Thoma Bravo with 85 million, and that reduces, in a manner of speaking, Investor AB, who are, of course, a huge investor in the OMX group. That deal dating all the way back to, my goodness, 2007, 2008. They're going to be holding still some 65 million shares, if I remember correctly, off the top of my head. Oh, no, so not quite. 58 million and change. Very strong and tight shareholding at the top. It's also going to be quite interesting as Thoma Bravo obviously must be toasting the world's great exchanges, having previously sold Ellie Mae for $11 billion to ICE in 2020. And now they're selling Adenza to Team Adena. Great job all round and very, very exciting deal for the parish, catapulting NASDAQ to essentially within a hair's breadth or just slightly ahead of the market capitalization once this completes of the Deutsche Börse Group at the top of Young's Pyramid Tier 2. Congratulations also in order to Team Vermiculus, including Chairman Niels Robert Persson, who we'll be hearing from later, and CEO Tarana Dariati. Tarana, of course, was our IPO-VID guest for episode 48, a new code for market structure. They've delivered early their new microservice-based clearing solution for the Minneapolis Grain Exchange, Minneapolis Grain Exchange being a wholly owned subsidiary of Miami International Exchanges Group. Congratulations all round. It's lovely to see a tech project being delivered and delivered ahead of time as well. Meanwhile, this week, also in Exchange Invest, the water cooler of the Bourse business, the exchange of information, to which you can, of course, subscribe for only $349 per user year. Please do. It helps pay for, well, amongst other things, this IPO-VID live stream. Prices are back below 30 euros in the European gas benchmark. TTF is back, baby. The world's gas benchmark is an EU and Euro priced benchmark. It's trading vast volumes after the Ukraine invasion aberrations due to Russian gas addiction amongst several European nations, most notably Germany. Very, very interesting move there. Thankfully, the cap did not have to be used on trading, and thus, despite the fact that the European Commission don't seem to really appreciate it, the world's gas benchmark remains TTF, trading fluidly and back below 30 euros, having been as high as 342 at one point in time when Germany last year went to the market and said, we need gas. And everybody said, what price will you pay? And they said, whatever. Those are the sort of ways that bubbles manage to be created. Finally, IPO of the year in Europe. No prizes if you manage to guess, or probably copious prizes if you manage to guess, actually, if you haven't been watching the news or following Exchange Invest, what bourse it's going to be listed on. It's not going to be London, not going to be Frankfurt, not going to be Euronext. No, actually, it's going to be The Bucharest Stock Exchange. Yes, I'm sure that was everybody's second guess. Hydroelectrica, that's the massive energy combined power generator in Romania, coming to market, scheduled to raise €1 billion, essentially for Franklin Templeton, one of their major shareholders. Unfortunately, the government isn't privatizing yet, but the deal is a great leap forward if BVB can handle it. And indeed, the deal will not be, as previously thought, a joint listing with London. Another blow there for the LSEG. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. This show does not have one single guest. It has a multiplicity of them who have joined us with various pre-recorded segments. We're celebrating AFM at 25, the Association of Futures Markets. You may remember the last couple of shows have actually had a lot to do with AFM, the Association of Futures Markets, being the emerging markets association of exchanges around the world. And we've been celebrating their quarter century. They met again in Budapest last week. I was a keynote speaker. Sadly, I wasn't able to be there, as unfortunately I had a slight lurgy a few days before and therefore would have broken all the temperature sensors as I tried to make my way through the various airports I needed to connect via, and thus I had to give it by video. Good news is, though, at least we've got the video of that coming up later in the show. So where can we start? Well, actually, what I want to celebrate today is not just AFM at 25, but our 10th anniversary, ladies and gentlemen, the 10th birthday of Exchange Invest. We started a decade ago as, well, I suppose somewhat of a surprise to many. Many people didn't think there was even a marketplace for there being a single point of information, an exchange of information, as we call it, the parish water cooler, to deliver all of the information from the world's bourses. Well, thankfully, after a beta test in which the first dozen or 20 people all initially said, we don't see the point. And then after 2 weeks, some of them said, gosh, please don't stop doing this now. After 3 weeks, several more said, please don't stop doing this now. After 4 weeks, a multiplicity of people said, oh my goodness, I never realized how much information I was missing. This is absolutely an essential read. And indeed, after 6 to 8 weeks, the final straggler came home and said, thank goodness you don't listen to me because I'm a complete. And unfortunately, I can't actually give you the word at this point in time because this is a show which is live streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And they would ban us if we used the expletive deployed by the person at that point in time. All of those beta testers became loyal subscribers. And the whole point of today is to listen to some of our loyal subscribers talking about what has been their view and offering some congratulations. And let's start with one we saw actually also in last week's show. It's a magnificent video. I'm delighted to welcome our subscriber number one, Dr. Robert Barnes. He's the former CEO of Turquoise. I first remember seeing him on the life floor in the Royal Exchange several decades ago when he came straight hot foot from doing a doctorate in astrophysics at Cambridge University, having previously been at Harvard, and started on the UBS graduate trainee program where they sent him to the floor as a runner for a few weeks to learn how futures markets actually worked. Robert Barnes, the word from subscriber number one. That was a show we had on July the 14th, 2021, IPO-VID 37. Here are his congratulatory bon mots.
Congratulations, Patrick Young from subscriber number one.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robert Barnes, for that magnificent message. We really, really appreciate it. It gave everybody in the office a huge bounce, a spring in their step when we ran that past the morning meeting a couple of weeks ago when we first received it. Absolutely super message there. Robert Barnes, fellow of the CISI, formerly the boss of Turquoise, part of the London Stock Exchange Group, and of course nowadays the principal of Anopolis, an international consulting service to exchanges and market structure participants that knows no bounds in its expertise, thanks to the good doctor's insights. Thank you. That was the word from subscriber number one, which was our 37th show. Moving on, let me just say hello and thank you very much to John T. Good to be able to join this show today, he says. Good to be able to join this evening for another great conversation. Good evening, all. Thank you very much. And do, by the way, if you're watching this, John T and everybody else, send us a little love. We'd love a heart or other like or mention. It helps get the AI listening to this, our AFM at 25, Exchange Invest at 10, and indeed Exchange Invest IPO-VID 100 plus celebratory episode, because of course then more people will find us in search engines and more people will be able to learn more about our beloved financial markets. If you got any questions during the course of today, you're more than welcome to ask them, John T and any other guests that may be watching. Now, in the middle of COVID in March 2021, March the 2nd, we had a fabulous discussion. We were joined by Magnus Almqvist, the head of sales for Expiry, Eric Saraniecki, the co-founder and head of product at Digital Asset, and also the executive chairman of Bay Markets. It was absolutely fantastic to see Peter Fredriksson in the studio, and we invited him to give us a little comment. So here he is, 2 years on from IPO-VID 22, the executive chairman of Bay Markets, coming to us live from Stockholm in Sweden when he recorded this message. Take it away, Peter.
Congratulations, Exchange Invest 10 years. Big congrats to the team behind you and especially you, Patrick Young. I have really enjoyed reading your newsletters, watching your videos, being interviewed, and you've always been a big supporter of Bay Markets. You're a big voice in the exchange industry, and I really look forward to hearing more about you or from you for the next 10 years.
Thank you so much, Peter Fredriksson. Fantastic to see you. It has been an incredible 10 years. It's great to see you looking so well, and a joy to have readers like you amongst those who are on the Exchange Invest platform. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, you too could subscribe at exchangeinvest.com. So one of the things that obviously Bay Markets is really flourishing in is the increasingly real-time nature of our markets. And that's something which their particular functionality has been devised to do around all sorts of aspects of the clearing and settlement stack in particular. Peter having a wealth of experience as part of that very, very interesting center of excellence, which is the Stockholm Financial Technology Cluster. And it's a financial technology cluster very, very strongly focused on the parish of exchanges and market infrastructure. One of the other topics we've been talking about a lot during the course of the last couple of years, of course, has been the blockchain. Blockchain mixed with settlement seems to be a very, very exciting secret ingredient. And indeed, in IPO-VID 94 in February of this year, February the 15th to be precise, we were delighted to welcome the first CEO of South Africa's CSD, Straight Pty Limited. In fact, she effectively built the CSD, the Central Securities Depository, for the proper settlement of what was at that point in time a deeply paper-driven South African stock exchange environment. Monica Singer talked about straight to the blockchain, and she joins us to give us a few happy words on our anniversary. Monica.
Congratulations to Exchange Invest, especially to Patrick Young for wonderful 10 years. It has been such a pleasure to work with you and to be able to be part of your podcast. Thank you. Well done for many more years.
Dr. Monica Singer, 2 doctorates out of 3. My goodness, what a high level of intellect we have. And certainly Peter Fredriksson's no slouch either, is he, on the intellectual heft level? While we're talking about, obviously, the blockchain and related issues, that brings us very much close to data. And actually, it was a joy in May 2022 to interview Jonathan Block, the founder of Exchange Data International, one of those data firms that you may never have heard of if you're not in the institutional financial markets business. If you are in the institutional financial markets business, you probably can't afford to be without their incredible network of information services that they manage to integrate and send through all manner of digital services, including corporate actions and a huge welter of reference price data from the world's markets. Jonathan was talking about disrupting exchange data internationally, and he gave us this message. Jonathan.
I want to congratulate Patrick and his team for producing a fantastic newsletter for the past decade. Their coverage of the exchange world is fantastic. where there's scandal, where there's muck, their newsletter covers it in a robust, independent manner and exposes the charlatans and particularly the fraudsters behind crypto. Patrick and your team, you've done a fantastic job. May you do this for many, many more decades. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for that heartfelt message. And certainly, we definitely want to provide a championing of the exchange industry. We always do. We believe inherently in the bourse business. It is, let's face it, the model of electronic e-commerce to this day, whether in its regulated forms, which we tend to specialize in, or its unregulated forms, whether you're looking at Airbnb, Uber, Amazon, eBay, etc. Mercado Libre, to mention another huge international provider. Thus, the exchange business is something we're very optimistic about, and that's why it's so great to be able, via IPO-VID, to interact with so many of these leading figures in the business, such as Jonathan Block, someone you may not know a great deal about, but without whom, I can assure you, you would have a lot less reference data at the end of your day, whether you're dealing with your SIP in London or your pension in Johannesburg, whatever it is across the world of markets. Thank you, Jonathan. We'll continue exposing the charlatans and indeed calling out those who are underperforming at the same time. But I very much hope we can spend the next 10 years also praising the excellence we're seeing in these markets and, of course, the excellence in vendors like Exchange Data International. That brings us to a beautiful niche exchange in Canada. We've had several guests from Canada so far in the course of IPO-VID already in its 110 episodes. It was really a joy to welcome the Canadian Securities Exchange's CEO, Richard W. Carleton. He talked about going from SMEs to cannabis power player in IPO-VID 63 on September the 7th last year. Well, actually, let's let Richard introduce himself.
I'm Richard Carleton, the CEO of the Canadian Securities Exchange, and I'm here to congratulate Patrick Young and the team at Exchange Invest for all of the work that they do to bring the parishioners of the capital markets from around the world together on a daily basis. It's now a regular part of my morning routine to read Patrick's update of happenings around the parish, and my life is incomparably richer as a result. Thank you, Patrick, and thanks to the Exchange Invest team. Congratulations.
Richard, we really, really appreciate your message. Thank you very, very much. Keep doing great things in Toronto. SME markets, in my opinion, cannot be supported enough around the world. And I think it's great what you've been doing at the Canadian Securities Exchange in order to try and help a new generation of Canadian entrepreneurs, foreign entrepreneurs, cannabis entrepreneurs, and all sorts of other specialty verticals that you've been working on. It is genuinely God's work to be able to help those businesses develop, add jobs, and build the fabric of our economies the world over. Thank you both to you and Jonathan Block for your kind comments about our team. You don't tend to see them in front of the camera. You don't hear about them or hear from them so often, but without that team, Exchange Invest simply wouldn't happen. IPO-VID simply wouldn't happen either if it wasn't for example, our production team today. And thank you very much to Fernando, to Jamil, and also Natalie for the great work that you're doing behind the scenes in bringing this together. And all the team at HQ, it is just a joy to work with you. And that's how we've managed to develop over the course of 10 years and be building strongly for the course of the next decade in Exchange Invest. And that brings us quite elegantly to another of our long-standing subscribers, former Hong Kong Exchange's senior executive, James Falk. Now, James wrote a magnificent book. If you haven't read it already, you really have to. It was the book of the week as recently as last week in Exchange Invest, and we'll get to our book of the week in just a moment. But James wrote a book called Financial Cold War. He was superbly illuminating, discussing Financial Cold War on July the 20th last year in IPO-VID 73. And here he is coming to us, I do believe, live from Hong Kong, but he's a man of so many pieces of real estate, it's hard to keep up with where he is in the world today. James.
Congratulations, Patrick, on the 100th episode of IPO-VID and the 10th anniversary of Exchange Invest. Exchange Invest has been the must-read source of daily pith and informed analysis for everyone working in the exchanges industry. We hope you will keep it coming.
James, We're motivated for the next decade. We're planning ahead. I'm delighted to say that Exchange Invest has never looked better, but at the same time, we sincerely hope we'll be welcoming more sponsors. Indeed, a sponsor for IPO-VID or two would be very, very welcome as well. And indeed, bringing along more readers and more subscribers in the course of time so that also we can educate more people about what happens in the exchange parish. I mentioned the fact that James had written this absolutely magnificent book, Financial Cold War. Another superb book is our book of the week for this week. It's truly a must read. That's the whole point of our book of the week club. In Defense of Capitalism by Rainer Zittelmann is the best book of the moment that relates to understanding and appreciating the invisible hand. And we'll be getting to Adam Smith and more about him in the course of the near term when we have a great guest coming up from the Adam Smith Institute to talk about his 300-year legacy coming soon. Rainer Zittelmann's In Defense of Capitalism examines the 10 most common objections to capitalism. He defends capitalism very elegantly. He explains how the invisible hand works. He explains how growth works. And also, he has a magnificent second half of the book exploring popular perceptions of capitalism in Europe, the US, Latin America, and Asia, based on specially commissioned Ipsos Mori poll of 21 countries, which was being presented for the first time in the book. It's an absolute must read, just as indeed I have to say an absolute must watch was IPO-VID 104, where Rainer Zittelmann joined us in Defense of Capitalism to talk about precisely that topic. Now, moving on from our book, let me just also say thank you very much. We've got a couple of comments have come in recently. I really appreciate. Congratulations on your anniversary, says Woman on It. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. We'll be reciprocating the love tomorrow when we're looking forward to another great guest on PhD. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering why there isn't a guest this week, partly it's because I was hoping to record some video from Budapest from the AFM's 25th anniversary conference last week, but sadly a little bout of a lurgy stopped me from getting there. Nonetheless, we've been so overwhelmed with well-wishing messages that therefore the theme of this AFM at 25, Exchange Invest at 10, Exchange Invest IPO-VID 100 anniversary spectacular meant that we've been able to fill a show with what I think is some very, very interesting pointers, comments, and so on. Do please feel free to add your comment in the captions if you've got anything you'd like to say. And let's move on to another guest. IPO-VID 83 in November the 9th last year was talking about BMLL's liquidity maps, the Data Magna Carta. Another fascinating data vending company, doesn't overlap with, for example, Exchange Data International, but demonstrates just how important it is that we're really crunching the numbers brilliantly in terms of how the approach to big data is working. And we have, therefore, I do believe, our third doctor of the evening, Elliot Banks, the BMLL Chief Product Officer. Elliot's joining us from London. What do you have to say this evening, Elliot?
Congratulations, Patrick Young and the whole team for 10 years of Exchange Invest. At BMLL, we never miss a day of the info-packed parish newsletter, and here's to the next 10 years. All the best from the whole BMLL team.
Oh, gee, the info-packed parish newsletter. Those are words that really resonate for me. Thank you so much, Dr. Elliot Banks and all of the BMLL team. Delighted that you could send in that message, and it was great to see you and indeed also the CEO, Paul Humphreys, during the course of our IPO-VID run to date. Now, our next guest takes us back to the blockchain. Sandra Rowe is the CEO of the Global Blockchain Business Council. She joined us quite a while ago now in the, back in the throes of what was still a lockdown a year ago, or at least the starting to break down lockdown process. What a useful piece of our time that all was, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, moving swiftly on, IPO-VID 027 was talking about distributing blockchain globally, a topic which is very close to our hearts at Exchange Invest and IPO-VID as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, Sandra Rowe coming to us from somewhere in the ethersphere.
Hello, my name is Sandra Rowe. I'm the CEO of the Global Blockchain Business Council, and I would love to wish Patrick Young and his entire team on the 10th anniversary of Exchange Invest. Congratulations, and to another decade of successful interviews and webinars to focus on the most salient and critical issues in market infrastructure.
The salient critical infrastructure issues of the markets are indeed what we're all about at the Exchange of Information, which is Exchange Invest. Thank you very, very much, Sandra Rowe, the head of the Global Blockchain Business Council, doing great work in order to try and manage to provide a sensibly, coherently regulated blockchain process around the world, which is fabulous to see, championing an industry which has so much to offer in the worlds of settlement, clearing, provenance, and much, much else. Now, part of this show, I mentioned AFM at 25, Exchange Invest at 10, and indeed also IPO-VID passing through 100 episodes, was to bring you a little flavour of the AFM conference in Budapest. Instead of being there, of course, I had a slight lurgy, as I mentioned earlier, so we're going to bring you something entirely different. This was my keynote speech last week. We had 2 keynote speeches at the AFM conference. There's a magnificent keynote by Dr. Richard Sander, Professor of so much in the economic world, great student of Ronald Coase and much else besides. He offered a great deal of genius insights on day 1 of the conference. My keynote was on day 2. Here you've got an opportunity to listen to what was an attempt by me to offer a casual fireside chat during the course of the second day of the 25th anniversary Association of Futures Markets convention in Budapest, Hungary last week. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I must apologize I am not there in person. I'm deeply disappointed, in fact, that I can't share the one-to-one experience in the round of AFM 25 in Budapest. It's unfortunate. I was ill last week. This is really the first day I've been feeling remotely human once again. For those of you who think that I do feel human at any point in time. Nonetheless, it's a joy to be able to commune with you by video. I realize that I am the second keynote speaker during the course of this meeting. And let me say, it's a real honor at any point in time to follow in the footsteps of that great man, Professor Dr. Richard Sander. He really is a true visionary, a true luminary, and a great student of markets, ladies and gentlemen. And that keynote that he gave us yesterday morning was spectacular. Absolutely brilliant resume of lots of information about the world of financial markets, past, present, and future. I'm not going to try and tread on his toes. In fact, I would just like to say I echo everything that he was saying. But nonetheless, I mean, in my topic, AFM 25 years on emerging markets 25 years forward, I want to talk about a few other themes overall. And obviously, one of the things that Richard was talking about yesterday was the different decades and how they worked. And I suppose one thing that struck me was how in the 1970s, whether you were on the west or the east side of the Berlin Wall, it was nonetheless a rather bleak time. We had that report, The Limits to Growth, which told us that, well, we were going to be boxed in. And nothing, ladies and gentlemen, has proven to be more inaccurate. And in that sense, I suppose one lesson we've learned from our history of the AFM going 25 years back and looking 25 years forward is the simple reality that when the groupthink grabs us and lots of people manage to get together and tell us what's going to be the future, they're pretty poor at working out what it's going to be. And indeed, if we were to sit and look at the way that this forum has advanced over those 25 years, well, first of all, I think it's fair to say that the early years of various meetings in different halls, particularly around Eastern Europe, I mean, the 1990s is a decade all the way from the round table in Poland, which ultimately kicked off the process where perestroika ran out of control, glasnost ran out of control, and thank the Lord, we ended up with freedom, liberty, and the opportunity for the Eastern European markets to come through once again as people were freed. I suppose one lesson we could probably draw from that was there's a great deal less polyester around 25 years on than there was during the course of the 1990s, when it still seemed to be the suit material of choice. Because I suppose the problem is that supply lines do take a long time to change in so many different ways. It was an incredible criteria at the emerging stages in, say, 1998, when this organization was formed, to look at what was the base, the relationship to those different markets. And of course, it was a very heavily physical, commodity-driven enterprise. And one thing that we have to say going forward at all points in time is we can never lose the understanding, the core base of linking our markets to those forms of physical commodity. And I suppose in some ways that's rather appropriate at which we're celebrating this week. I mean, yesterday was the 6th of June, the great date of D-Day, at point in time when Europe as a whole was liberated once again, or at least ultimately the Western half. The Eastern half had to go through another few decades of pain under Stalin and various other apparatchiks before things really started to move forward in the 1990s and AFM was founded. And then indeed there is this whole incredible opening during the course of the 1990s, which helped drive the AFM forward through Central Europe, Eastern Europe, and so on. And that's an incredible process because we saw an amazing unleashing of great minds. Not great minds who previously might have been boxed into, well, noble pursuits such as chess and other such interesting aspects of physics and the sciences and so on, but also the opportunity to see minds unleashed on markets. And what do we know about this week? Well, of course, on Monday, the 5th of June, that was the 300th anniversary of the birth of really the man who in many ways, shapes and form is responsible for oh so much of what has gone on around us, which is, of course, Adam Smith, the father of modern free market economics. Subsequently, it has to be said, added to in the cabal of portfolio of learning and information that we've had by the likes of Hayek and the Chicago School, Coase, who indeed Richard was talking about in his speech, and many, many others such as Milton Friedman et al. But nonetheless, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, here we are 300 years on, and in fact, on Monday, we even ran an issue of Exchange Invest, which was entirely using the pithy remarks of Adam Smith 300 years later in order to provide analysis into the current goings on in the world of the bourse business. And very opposite, I thought it was too. Let's face it, Adam Smith, as he said in The Wealth of Nations, man is an animal that makes bargains. No other animal does this. No dog exchanges bones with another. And I have to say, as I've got 6 puppies, which are about to go FOB for anybody who wants to take delivery from our back garden, that is absolutely true. Puppies are useless at exchanging things altogether. Indeed, as he goes on to note, every man lives by exchanging. And that's perhaps a very appropriate message to have across the core of all of our conference, all of our discussions, because surely if there is an advantage to the AFM, that is the one-on-one personal meetings and the opportunity and the ongoing ability of all parties, no matter whether they were in the largest economy that we've ever seen in the history of the world, all the way down to the smallest economies that have graced us, whether they were fast growing or just small by dint of being incredibly small land masses. The simple reality of the advantage of the AFM remains the fact that there is an incredible discourse amongst the practitioners. And that's what I'm really, really deeply sorry that I'm not able to see today. Of course, having said that, it would be lovely to see you, Rod Gravel, at London and catch up. It's been far, far too long. And I hope we'll see you in one of my IPO vids soon. Similarly, Hamish Adurian, welcome to the AFM Club. I'm delighted you could make it to this year's event. Thank you for your participation on the panel. You, amongst many others, are welcome additions to what is an AFM family, as Chris Sturgis was actually talking about during the course of my IPO vid this week, which took place on Tuesday evening. And you can still find IPO-VID on YouTube. Where does this bring us? Well, the most important thing I think about an organization that is 25 years old is that it's very easy to start living off past glories. And that is a fatal mistake. The most important thing that you need to have in an association going forward is to have a very clear, and really this is customer service 101, focus, a customer base and a customer focus, and a mission. Whether that mission is the same all along or whether you change it as you go along and you iterate, I personally think every business has to iterate in this day and age, and that's the same for clubs and associations. We can certainly see models within our wonderful world of exchanges and markets of industry associations that are going wrong, and indeed industry associations which at one point in time looked absolutely insurmountable, but ultimately fell apart because they lost their focus on the future. And that is something, if you're going to survive another 20 years and flourish, as we all pray and hope that AFM is going to do, and I will certainly do my utmost if I possibly can behind the scenes to help you achieve your aims going forward, then what we need to see from AFM is a constant, consistent, ongoing vision. What that vision may be today, tomorrow, beyond Tom next 7 days to a month to a year to whatever, is going to change. But the simple reality is, without a vision, the association will fail. And without the members, the association will fail. And indeed, without members giving, it will fail as well. And that, I still think, is the core success of AFM. Above all, and any other industry association that I can mention out there. I'll give an honorable mention, though, I think, to CCP12. I know Raphael is in the audience today. It's great to have you coming and talking about clearinghouses because they remain such a vital thing. And certainly there are pitfalls for the emerging markets of the future, because I think relatively few new clearinghouses are going to be built, and therefore we must find a way in order to be able to utilize and cooperate on that existing infrastructure. But nonetheless, CCP12, I applaud you, Raphael. You've built a great association during the course of the last 10 years. It is one that's based on a super enthusiastic membership, and I salute you. And I indeed salute not just the chairman and president of AFM and the past chairman of AFM who guided the association so well, but I think whoever you are, whether you're Paul or Pat, or indeed the previous chairman, Chris, you'll all agree with me that the one person we really need to salute for being the glue, in many ways the mother of the entire organization, is Christina Kasha. And that is a very, very vital factor. When you have a passionate secretariat who are doing this because they love it and they enjoy it, not just because of the fact that it happens to be something that pays them a stipend, then you have the basis, that you can fabricate further forward a much, much better and more exciting and productive association. So I mentioned earlier on the limits to growth and how that was just fundamentally wrong. And actually, it's interesting to look at other pieces of groupthink. There's a fascinating piece of groupthink that's been around all of my working career, and that is several decades long at this point in time, much older even than the AFM. And that is the idea that the US dollar has actually managed to peak. In fact, actually, it predates even my career. In my childhood in the 1970s, when we were shackled with the limits to growth, which was going to tell us that when we grew up, everything would be pretty awful, and completely missed out technology, the internet, anything to do with anything that actually became remotely digital. Let's face it, they didn't think about low-cost airlines or indeed deregulation and the opportunity and the prosperity that it would bring to all of us, and the great opportunity that would come from the collapse of the Berlin Wall. I always loved the story by my old friend, Professor Jonathan Story, who used to lecture at INSEAD. And Jonathan was lecturing a summer school. And as he did, he went through his summer school, as he'd done for several summers, and said, here are the maths of the Soviet Union. This is the deficit of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union cannot survive. He did that from the early 1980s all the way through to the late 1980s, when he was no longer able to use that material for obvious reasons. And I suppose the most interesting thing is not that people went, wow, that's incredible. Wow, that's the most awesome thing we've heard and it's great news. Oh no, the thing that was incredible, ladies and gentlemen, was that actually people complained. People got up and said, a Fortune 500 CEO went to his summer school and said, that's ridiculous. It's so totally ludicrous. He went off and wrote to the dean and demanded that Jonathan got fired. Fortunately, there's such a thing as academic tenure, so therefore he survived. In fact, the dean thought it was absolutely hilarious and applauded him for managing to so upset the apple cart. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because it is very easy to get locked in the box at all points in time, whether we're thinking about exchanges, whatever we're looking at. And one of the things that fascinates me from the 1970s was that was overarching pessimism of what was going on. If we look at this decade, there is a sense of overarching pessimism starting to grasp in a lot of places. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, look at the technology that surrounds us. Look at how little it has so far penetrated into the lives of so many. Look at how, well, this incredible device, you know, this thing that you can use as your computer, and it stores messages. You can use it for email. It has your social media on it. You can watch videos on it. You can record videos on it. You can record podcasts on it. Incredibly, it even has a module built into it, which has a telephone inside it. I mean, the extent to which technology goes these days is incredible. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you have more technology in the palm of your hand by the factor of 10, 20, 50, in order to manage to launch, for example, the Apollo missions, they all took place on a fraction of the computing power of whatever smartphone you have in your wallet or purse today. The simple fact is, ladies and gentlemen, if we can harness that technology, even 5%, 10% or more, we can create great prosperity. And the point about everything that essentially Adam Smith was working his way towards all those centuries ago was to understand the fact that prosperity was something that is a shared and wonderful thing that takes place when we have the Holy Trinity of supportive government, a sensible and coherent market. That's us. And the opportunity for people to improve themselves and society around them. The past 25 years of the Association of Futures Markets has been defined by one thing: improvement, self-improvement of the association, of the members, of the groups. We arrive 25 years later. We're discussing things over the course of the last couple of days that were barely thought of or talked about 25 years ago. Energy, electricity markets, they were only happening in a few places in America, and they were theoretically happening in Australia in the course of 1998. Carbon markets, which Richard has discussed much more eloquently from his position as truly a father of the carbon market, as well as being the father of the modern futures markets. So many other opportunities surround us, ladies and gentlemen. And remember, there is one thing which is hugely to our advantage. The business model of e-commerce is, in every possible sense, as I will never tire of saying to you, and as I pointed out at my keynote last year in London, it is the exchange. Whether they call it Uber, whether they call it Zamas, whatever that enterprise is, you, the builders of exchanges, the creators, organizers, and maintainers of exchanges, have in your hands, we hold the opportunity to deliver spectacular future profit, prosperity, and therefore a great benefit for everybody in society. There's so much else I could say, but ladies and gentlemen, I just want to end by saying thank you very much for your time. It's really been a pleasure to be with you today, albeit virtually. I am truly very, very sorry that illness stopped me last week from traveling, and that has left me here, admittedly in somewhat of a paradisical idyll, but nonetheless, it lacks one thing: the opportunity to interact with each and every one of you one-to-one. The AFM may have been born in an era of digital markets, but nonetheless, the absolute core benefit of what we're going to see and what's going to come out of this conference, which unfortunately I will not be such a close part of this year, is your interaction. And therefore, I hope you're going to have a wonderful times networking. I wish you all a hugely productive and successful rest of the conference and a safe journey home. And I'll leave you with one pointer. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the AFM. Next year marks the 25th anniversary of a book. It was called Capital Market Revolution. And therein began a fascinating, exciting, and amazing dynamic tale of electronic markets and fintech. My name is Patrick L. Young. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Do please join me via Exchange Invest. Sorry not to be able to catch up with many of our subscribers that are at the meeting this week. I wish you all a very, very successful conference, and here's to 25 more fabulously successful years for the Association of Futures Markets. Thank you for your time and have a great event. Well, sorry about that. He went on a bit, didn't he? Gosh, honestly, some of these speakers just can't stop themselves. No, so that was the highlights of my speech from the keynote at the AFM Budapest last week, which, as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't able to get to. Hello to Marcus Ward. Good evening, everybody, says Marcus. Marcus, great to see you. Thank you very much for joining the show. And also, going back to the fabulous comments that we had from Sandra Rowe, the boss of the Global Blockchain Business Council, just before that speech. Woman on it saying, we'd love to see Sandra again. Totally agree. It'd be magnificent to see Sandra back to come and give us an update on what's been happening with the blockchain business. Let's see if we can maybe look to schedule something in Q3, Q4, whether it's on, well, who knows? It might even be with one at this time around. If it's not with IPO-VID, it would be great to see her all together. Sandra, thank you for your support. Thanks to all the others who've been offering us our considerable support during the course of recent months. One of our earliest supporters, we had subscriber number 1 earlier, Dr. Robert Barnes, and we're going to move now to Christopher Messina. And Christopher Messina actually was our first guest. He was also our first guest to be on the show twice. His original debut was a show number, IPO-VID number 2, and here he is.
This is Christopher Messina coming at you from the Messy Time Studios in the last free state in America, Florida. I was delighted last year, or maybe even earlier, to be one of the early guests on IPO-VID, Patrick Young and team's brilliant podcast and discussion forum. Patrick and I go back years. I read his work before I met him, and I love the fact that he has kept at the forefront of people's minds all the changes that have happened in the capital markets as a result of what became called fintech, connectivity, the way that markets can develop better when there are more and more participants, even when there is no longer a boundary of space, but merely time. So I love all the guests he's had on. It was an honor to be one of those guests. It was also really great when I can to tune into the live streams that he does, because he has a series of very engaging guests who are prominent in the exchange world, the capital markets world, the fintech world, and it's a 10-year anniversary of Exchange Invest. It's kind of an impressive milestone for someone who has continually covered and created phenomenal content relating to our industry. So, Patrick, 10 more years is all I got to say for you. To you and the team, you're doing a phenomenal job. Keep it up. Maybe I'll be blessed again to be a guest. Maybe I'll be blessed again to have you as a guest on our show. But in any event, congratulations on the anniversary. It's been an absolutely wonderful period of time in terms of you in generating all this great stuff for your listeners, your subscribers, and I'm honored to have been a part of it. Mazel tov.
Thank you so much, Chris Messina. That's the Crowdfill LLC CEO and co-founder. He's also got some very nifty and interesting rare earths NFTs on the go at the moment. Chris Messina, he's the podcast producer of The Messy Times. He was our first guest in the studio for IPO-VID number 2. That was all the way back in July the 30th, 2020, when we started this show, because of course lockdown meant that we couldn't go anywhere for the course of that year and pretty much the course of the next 18 months. And indeed, Chris returned as the man from Messy Times returns episode on April the 27th, 2021. It was a joy to see you then too. Thank you, Chris. And hopefully, yeah, we will see you again for a guest show sometime in the near future. And that brings us to another very interesting figure who's been around the capital markets and the technology vending business, in this case, very, very strongly for the course of decades. Man who previously founded his own companies, FastFill, amongst others. Keith Todd. Nowadays, he's the CEO of Trading Technologies. We talked to him delivering SaaS through TT on May the 25th, 2022, when the whole of the TT business was very new to him, as he'd only been CEO for a matter of weeks. Keith Todd, take it away.
Well, 10 years for Exchange Invest. Congratulations, Patrick. It's our 30th anniversary next year, and we know what it means and how challenging it is to have companies succeed over many, many years and to thrive just like your business is. It's great that you've provided the forum for individuals, but companies to get their views across on many important, fascinating topics from the capital markets. I look back actually here at the conversation we had, which was 4 months after I joined TT. And it's great and gratifying to say what we talked about is being delivered for TT, moving from significant position derivatives to multi-asset. Well, the next 10 years, well, that's going to be great for you as well. I know you can build on the success you've had over the period. It's been a privilege to work with you, and thank you for the opportunity.
From the heart of the world's financial markets, Trading Technology is about to celebrate their 30th anniversary next year under new ownership, of course, in the course of the last year. They brought in Keith Todd as CEO. A very good choice it was too. Fabulous show that was, delivering SaaS through TT. Thank you very much, Keith, for your kind words. And once again, thank you, thank Chris Messina and everybody else who's mentioned the team, because without the team, there would be no EI every day in your inbox. It takes a considerable amount of work to produce, and it takes a lot of effort to produce these videos as well. Thank you very much once again, team. Now let's jump to somewhere different, a new financial center. It's somewhere that's really grown in the course of the last decade, along with Exchange Invest, Astana, and hear from the Astana International Exchange Chief Operating Officer, Olivia Gerris.
Right, Patrick, dobry dzień, moi drogi, and welcome to beautiful Astana International Financial Center on a very nice and pleasant spring day. I want to seize this opportunity and occasion to wish yourself and all your team at Exchange Invest the happiest 10th birthday. Thanks so much for your dedication to the parish, for bringing us with this delightful daily dispatch, which I can't wait to find in my inbox. And when I don't find it on the rare public occasions of public holidays in the UK, trust me that I do feel depressed. Again, thank you very much. And obviously can't wait to be maybe not in Astana, but somewhere else around the world in another 10-year time to wish you and your team and Exchange Invest a very happy 20th birthday. Take care, mate, and all the best. Bye-bye.
Likewise, dobry dzień, mój drogi, to Oliver. Olivia Gerris was coming to us there from Astana, the Astana International Financial Center, with COO of the Astana International Exchange. He talked to us previously, building better markets all over the world, when he was actually in Sydney, in Australia, on October the 12th, 2022. One of the key facets, of course, of whether it's building a financial center or building a new exchange or building a new market infrastructure of any kind, is the importance of the marketing angle, and indeed also finding a market niche and filling it very, very well. That's why we had a discussion why the world needed a fifth options exchange on April the 10th, 2023. I was in the Middle East at the time. Bruce Goldberg was coming to us from his home in New York. He was the former ISE Chief Marketing Officer who branded that organization, and he's nowadays the founder and CEO of the Goldberg Group. Here's his comments to us on our 10th anniversary.
Good day. I'm Bruce Goldberg, former CMO of the International Securities Exchange from 2001 to 2011. I'd like to congratulate Patrick on his 10-year anniversary, another 10-year anniversary. As most of you know, Patrick is one of the most seminal writers, observers, and has his own opinions about the financial services world from the time he published in '99, the Capital Markets Revolution. I met Patrick in 2002, and he's been a trusted ally, informative, has one of the most illustrative views of what the current situations are, as well as the future. So Patrick, congratulations, and looking forward to the next 10. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much, Bruce, and thank you again for all the incredible work you did branding the ISE, truly a seminal moment in the history of capital markets. Also, when we were talking about, the development over the course of the last 24 years, as it was from the capital market revolution, one of the people I met all those years ago in 1999 was Alex Lamb. He's now the head of the Americas for another of those great tech companies coming out of the Stockholm FinTech capital markets FinTech cluster, Skilla Inc. He talked to us about real-time risks on April the 26th, 2023. Here's a message from Alex in the USA.
Patrick, congrats on 10 years. Seems like a blink compared to the length of time that we've known each other from distant geographical locations. Speaking to you today from my Youngstown house. All the best in your venture and keep it going. Seems like yesterday we met and you were touting your first book probably over 25 years ago. So all the best and keep it going. Cheers.
Thank you very, very much, Alex, for that comment. It's really, really a joy to have you on the show. When you were talking about real-time risks, something that's vitally important to us all just a few weeks ago, April the 26th, 2023. I look forward to seeing you soon. We talked a lot today about actually Stockholm, and this is our third video to come from that great and illustrious city. Tirana Deriati was actually handing over the baton to her chairman for this particular video. So someone who has not joined us on IPO-VID yet, but I hope you will join us one of these days, Nils Robert, to talk about your incredible career. The founder and chairman of Vermiculus Financial Technology, Nils Robert Persson. Take it away from Stockholm.
It's 10 a.m. in Stockholm, 4 a.m. in Miami, 6 a.m. in Sao Paulo, and 3 a.m. in Chicago. It's time to send congratulations to Patrick Young and Exchange Invest for 10 years anniversary. It's a good way of understanding our industry to read the newsletter and see the live stream. Good luck for the next 10 years.
Thank you so much, Nils Robert. And of course, a poignant moment there because he mentions several great financial centers, including, of course, Miami, the home of Miami International Exchange, where, of course, recently Vermiculus have just delivered software to their subsidiary, the Minneapolis Grain Exchange. And he also mentions, of course, Brazil, where they've got a lot of business going on with B3, and, of course, Stockholm, where I think so far they've managed to occupy pretty much every co-working space across the great city of Stockholm at some time or another, as Vermiculus Financial Technology has moved at an incredible pace. The world's fastest moving, fastest growing technological worm, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much, Nils Robert. Really appreciate that. Let's go to one of the titans of this industry, the ICE business itself. We're going to finish today with two videos from guests that we had amongst those in the ICE business. First of all, the master of ICE futures, as we talked to him from Boca Raton in Florida in 2022. This is Trabu Bland talking to us from a different locale today.
Happy 100th video, Patrick, from the ICE grading room.
What a joy to see the ICE grading room there in New York, a fascinating facility altogether where they take the world's coffee and tell us what quality it is as they offer the ICE benchmark price for, well, certainly in my case, the absolutely most vital daily sustenance of the morning, and certainly something I don't believe Woman on It and many of our other guests or indeed viewers could survive without every day. And let's go to finally, somewhere that's not a top-grade financial center in everybody's list, but someone who's certainly a top-grade financial professional on that list is Jennifer Ilkew. She's now the president of ICE Futures US, having taken over from Trabu Bland, who was elevated to an even higher position still in the course of the last year. ICE cresting the derivatives wave was the topic of our conversation from Boca Raton in March this year. Jennifer joined us in IPO-VID 98, and here she is today to offer a few final bon mots for this conversation.
Hi, Patrick. I'm in Winnipeg in front of the historic Grain Exchange. I thought this would be a great place to congratulate you and your team on behalf of myself and ICE for 10 years of Exchange Invest. What a great success. Congratulations.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you to all of our magnificent speakers today. Jennifer Ilkew, Trabu Bland, Nils Robert Persson, Alex Lamb, Bruce Goldberg, Olivia Gerris, Keith Todd. Wow, Christopher Messina, Sandra Rowe, and yes, we do look forward to seeing you again, Sandra, hope sometime in the near future, Elliot Banks, and of course we had James Falk, Richard Carlton from Canada, Jonathan Block, Monica Singer, Peter Fredrickson, and subscriber number one, Robert Barnes, joining us today. That was alongside some great guest commenters. We really appreciate your remarks. John T, Messy Times, Woman on It, Marcus Ward. Thank you so much for all of your remarks. I'm not sure that I actually managed to include your comment there. Oh, Patrick is a true original. Very, very much appreciated altogether. Thank you so, so much, Chris, for your comments. And thank you very, very much, Woman on It. A great roundup of times around the world, referring to Nils Robert Persson, impersonating the opening to our show. How magnificent, absolutely fabulous altogether. It only remains for me to say, next week, we've got a fantastic show. We're going to be talking to Eamon Butler. He is the man who presides over the Adam Smith Institute, and he's going to be talking about the great economist, Adam Smith, 300 years on. Thank you once again to all of the Exchange Invest team for producing all of these nearly 2,500, nearly 3,000 episodes, issues so far of the Exchange Invest newsletter, and indeed also all of those involved in our production today. Thank you very much, Fernando, Jamil, and Natalie. Thank you to everybody who's participated. My name is Patrick L. Young. I wish you a great week in blockchain, life, and markets. See you at Exchange Invest.